Punches and takedowns give you plenty of news inside the Ultimate Fighting Championship cages. This time though, it's the fight outside the cage that's making the headlines, and it involves the big man of UFC, Dana White. After all, he's the most powerful man in the UFC. For years, Dana has promoted the game to bring it here to the world stage. While players come and go, he's in it for the long haul. This has made him the face of the UFC, and that's a big title to shake off. It's also a pretty big responsibility, and well, Dana White didn't live up to it this time, because on New Year's Eve, the president of the biggest fight promotion agency in the world took his personal fights public in a shocking way. Before you knew it, a video was making the rounds of the 53-year-old Dana slapping his wife, Ann White. Wait, how many of you knew her name before this? Exactly, very few. We had to dig it up ourselves for this video. You see, that's the issue. Despite the biggest shakeup to the UFC stage that was caused by this event, no one's really talking about it. So what are they doing? Most people are busy dismissing it as a domestic issue. Well, in this case, people are making excuses. This is not a he said, she said situation even. The big man hit the woman. After all, the video speaks for it. So why are people so keen on speaking up for the UFC president? Let's rewind a bit, shall we? So the TMZ video did not have sound. Instead, it just showed both White and Ann arguing outside a nightclub. It looked pretty tense. Soon enough, the punches came out, but it wasn't Dana who made the first move. Yes, the video showed Ann blowing up in White's face before he landed 2 counter slaps. The case against Dana looks weaker by the minute. Things would have been best left there until Dana slapped back in self-defense twice. We then see the UFC president lash out too and slap her twice before another round of struggle between them. Fortunately, that's where things seem to have cooled down, at least on video. Unfortunately though, that's also how the public commentary on this incident appears to have been cooled down. In the days since then, both parties have released their statement to the public, and it gave the public a new target to blame, saying that alcohol makes you do crazy stuff. Dana apologized for his behavior, calling it inexcusable. On the other hand, Ann blamed the alcohol and shared responsibility with her husband for the incident. This incited the debate on alcohol and its role in the fight. Still, whether or not husband and wife forgive each other, the public sure is divided in its opinion. Speaking of opinions, one opinion is that male public celebs have a tough and unfair life. You see, public personalities are often seen as models for the audience. They're not considered normal or human. After all, how many of us normal human beings get our domestic fights recorded and put on a platform like TMZ? Now, the debate's raging on about alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and public accountability. We last saw something like this happen in the Me Too movement, where public people were held up to public exposure. Maybe it's a harsh reality of yesterday's news being today's junk, but we have really short memories as a public, haven't we? In today's world, there's just so much happening so quickly. As a result, you won't see the same public energy in this case. It's losing even more steam as the heat picks up inside the UFC, with several big-name comebacks in the pipeline. However, there's plenty we can tell about the current public mood by its voice, as much as we can by its silence too. In this case, who's silent and about what? For starters, the parent company of UFC stayed silent on the issue. Yes, not even a peep from the upper management, as the longtime president of their biggest MMA platform was facing public criticism. That's just the bare minimum we could have expected. Behavior like this, just as in any organization, is often sanctioned. You either get a suspension, a fine, or just straight up get fired. You can guess what Dana got? Nothing. This showed that Dana's still the favorite son over at Endeavor. He must still be, after all. Endeavor's not even addressing the situation. Each day it becomes clearer that the UFC president might actually get off scot-free for this incident. The major stakeholders are not Endeavor, not even ESPN, it's you, the audience. The viewers at Endeavor care about you a lot. To show that, they signed a $1.5 billion deal with the service provider to become its only MMA platform. This means viewership figures are in the tens of millions for each event, higher for main events. This takes things to a whole other game, and Dana's the most important figure in meeting those growth targets, so it's fair to say they're going soft on their golden goose. Yeah? Well, for now, yes. It won't last long though if the public changes gears and goes after the president. Then the stakeholders will have to notice and take action. Meanwhile, the public's busy too, in chasing the forest for the trees. From the young ones to the oldest, there are mixed feelings about this incident. No one's explicitly discussing the situation, but you'll hear plenty of excuses for Dana. And when it's on the internet, everyone's got their opinion. Some have justified his attack as self-defense, as Ann is shown hitting him first. In another round of commentary, people started shifting the blame onto the other side, calling the wife names and dragging her for pushing her husband too far. This sounds like a national level conversation to have. For sure, these excuses are the sort of stuff that women often hear around the world when they complain about their abusers. While this situation is not very clear what domestic abuse situation is, will Dana's remorse be enough? Only time can tell. Still, in the past, celebrities have often received preferential treatment from the police too. In this case, also, no charges were filed by either side, so there's technically no legal side of things at the moment. There's more to one way to take things to court though. In the court of public opinion, sports personalities get a sweeter deal than most people. You don't need to look too far back even. In the UFC itself, NFL veteran Greg Hardy was charged and convicted of domestic violence but was never sanctioned by the UFC. Clearly then, the UFC has kept its rules flexible despite a verbal commitment to safety and justice. And guess who was making those commitments? The president, who's hailed for bringing the UFC to new highs. The biggest decision maker at the UFC now seems to join some of his players in securing the dishonorable title of wife beater. Surely, a UFC brand of justice has been taking place each time they come across news of abuse by one of their fighters. Now it's Dana himself who's up on the witness stand. At best, it started a dialogue on abuse and alcohol and public responsibility. At worst, it turned into a few distasteful memes. If you search UFC or Dana White on Google right now, the first 5 news articles will be about McGregor, Ngannou, and other players. But there's nothing about payback to Dana by the UFC over his recent misbehavior. And I think that says a lot. This is likely going to be the case until the paying audience, the same one that makes up the bulk of pay-per-view tickets, picks up on this and demands action. See you in the next video.